The new ESPN 850 900.
Every sport you find exciting.
Worldwide, all around the world. Now, we're international. So international.
10:33 back on the Sports Fix. Well, boy, Rich is always working up there, man. He's got a little pit bull who's tied into South Florida, 305, and we're going with a little Miami Hurricane talk.
I'm telling you, Rich is on fire
No
up
question.
there. That guy works hard. I mean, I see people floating around in his little office there, and it's like 8 people. And it's almost like a party up
Doesn't
there.
distract him, though.
Rich, I want to say this, that Chris and I have discussed at some point, and I don't know if I'd have to run this by Steve or whoever's in charge up there. When they do these Sports Center updates, can they come down here and do them with us?
The sports updates?
Yeah,
you just have to talk to who's doing them, see if they want to hang out with you
Hang
guys
out with us,
down
yeah.
there.
I mean, because
We'd like to be a little more interactive in the news.
you know, like, cause, you know, I mean, they're doing it and they're like very
Sometimes we
serious.
need clarification on things.
Yeah, you know, they're like all dialed in. I'm like, no. We want to dial
We need
them
a
back
little
just a
Robin
little
Quivers
bit.
in the
Well, you know, I'll check in, make sure we have all the appropriate software down there, and they can do their
Sure, our
updates.
software hadn't expired.
Yeah, something like that. Hey, we're going to talk a little Miami Hurricane football. Our good friend Danny Money of CanesInSight.com, our guest each and every Thursday on the show where we talk Miami Hurricane football. Danny, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, guys. I guess Nevin Shapiro buying 3 meals at Benihana is not the most shocking scandal in college football history anymore, right?
I'll say this. If you're the University of Miami, doesn't this kind of like look good? You're like, hey, you know, all he did was buy him dinner. You know, he never, you know, tried to consummate the deal afterwards, okay? I mean, that's at least Miami right now is dealing with what to us now looks like pretty minor stuff in college football when you look at the report here, the free report, as far as what went on at Penn State. So we'll see what happens with Miami as far as that thing is concerned. But one of the rumors floating around, and this sort of ties into Nevin Shapiro and boosters and whatnot, is there's a rumor floating around that Ray Armstrong is off the football team. And this is a guy who was a part of that Nevin Shapiro investigation, then had some contact with, I believe, an agent or something along those lines, and then would tweet about it or something along those. Is Ray Armstrong a part of the Miami Hurricane football program anymore?
That's still kind of an unsettled question. If you go to the Heck Athletic Center, I mean, it's pretty much a ghost town. Most of the coaches are on vacations. It's really the only break they get. So nothing official has been done. Ray definitely is not in the good graces of the coaches. As you mentioned, there was an issue with tweeting a picture of him with a booster. The booster is actually, an agent. The agent was actually his girlfriend who works for an agency. That got cleared up. He sat out a game, but came back and it was ruled to be fine. But again, he's tweeting pictures of him with people affiliated with an agency. So I think it's more of a question of just, stupidity and irresponsibility that he continues to do this, more so than any kind of NCAA problems. But it's still unsettled as of now. When the coaches all get back to the swing of things and they start preparing for fall camp in the weeks coming up, we should get a clear version of this.
One of the stories up here in Gainesville over the last week that we've been following quite closely is the Dante Phillips story. Supposedly was denied admission at the University of Florida. We tried to appeal that decision, but their original denial was upheld. Dante Phillips has mentioned some interest in the University of Miami, but as far as I know, Miami has some fairly high academic standards of which they're not willing to bend on much. How much real interest does Miami have in trying to get Phillips into school down there?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Miami does have heightened standards, higher than the NCAA minimum. We've had problems with it in the past, a lot of complaints from the fan base about it. With Dante Phillips, I know for a fact that we were calling his coaches and trying to do some due diligence on him last week. So there's definitely some interest on the Miami side. He says he's going to take a trip down to Miami. It's unclear whether the coaches asked him to come on the trip or he's just doing it to kind of plead his case. But as of now, I would say it's kind of a 50-50 shot. The situation actually happened about a decade ago with Antonio Thomas, who was signed with the University of Florida out of Belle Glade, and ended up going to Miami after he wasn't admitted. But I wouldn't be too optimistic about a repeat here.
And a follow-up question to that one there. Dante Phillips was a guy, I believe, that was recruited to Florida to play defensive tackle. But I know that there are a lot of people that believe he may be better suited to be an offensive lineman. Is Miami looking at him potentially as a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman, or is that not clear either?
I wouldn't say it's clear. I mean, my personal opinion is he looks like an offensive tackle. He's 6'6", very lean, long arms, very athletic. You watch the highlights, and again, this is not game film, this is just highlights. but he doesn't look like the most forceful player at the line. Kind of looks like more of a finesse player, and just looking at how he's built, you would think offensive line. But again, there's no clear answer on that, and really our interest still is undetermined at this point.
I was looking at another recruit that Miami is supposedly very interested in, defensive end Tim Williams out of the Baton Rouge area. Supposedly has interest in Miami as well. That would be a huge coup to not only take him away from LSU there right under their nose, but also, the rest of the SEC schools that have done a pretty good job of keeping folks within that area in the conference. Any real shot at getting Tim Williams down to Miami?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, Miami already has a commitment from a player named Standish Dobard. That's a pretty good name for you right there. Standish Dobard, a tight end out of Louisiana, who, wanted by everybody in the SEC, had an early offer from LSU, and just grew up a Canes fan, wanted to get away. Miami's had a lot of success in Louisiana. Last year signed Jacoby Briscoe, who's sort of a late emerging player, but a very talented player out of Louisiana. Reggie Wayne and Ed Reed, obviously two Hurricane greats. So I think there really is a good chance. And as time progresses and some of those LSU spots and Alabama spots start filling up, I think the chances only increase for Miami. You mentioned he's going to take a visit to Miami's Rising Senior Day, which is in early August. So if he makes it on campus for an unofficial, that shows that he is very interested.
I guess that's only fair. LSU's made a living out of taking Miami rejects, so turnabout's fair play, I guess.
Yeah, they've done pretty well in the Miami area, I can tell you, with Patrick Peterson and Dwayne Bowe. So I think both those schools have probably been happy with what they each has gotten out of the other's backyard there. Danny Money of CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Sports Fix. I was reading where Al Golden says, look, you can't be scared to play young players anymore in college football. Sometimes you need them. Of the freshmen that came in this previous class, your opinion on how many of those guys will not just play, but play significant minutes for Miami next year?
Well, let's see. I'm going to have to add it up, but I know 3 receivers most likely will travel, and that would be, my best guess would be Malcolm Lewis, Robert Lockhart, and Herb Waters. They appear to be the most talented, the most polished. Malcolm Lewis is very big already, close to 200 pounds. So I think those 3 guys you can expect to at least travel with the team. As far as offensive line, typically those guys don't play early, but Eric Flowers at Norland is such a special player that he might just force his way into some maybe jumbo packages, field goal blocking or some sort of role just because he's so talented, so ready to play. And honestly, just by watching him in spring, he looks like the best prospect on Miami's entire roster. If you're talking about NFL projections, just by the way he's built, the way he moves, the way he finishes plays. On the defensive end, you should see a lot more young players playing. Defensive end, there's a big opening with Olivier Vernon going pro and Marcus Robinson and Andrew Smith graduating, so you could see Jelani Hamilton play, Tyreek McCord playing sort of hybrid rush role, and then obviously we brought in 7 DBs. A lot of those guys are going to play.
Let's talk about coaches, and Randy Shannon, obviously a guy that played at Miami, was a long-time assistant for the Hurricanes, and then was the head coach there. Once that relationship kind of ended, you knew that at some point in time he was going to be coaching elsewhere. Supposedly some interest at TCU about him joining that staff. Any updates that you may have become aware of in that respect?
Yeah, I've heard the rumors, and I know he wants to get back into coaching. Actually, in the past year, he's sort of been visiting with other staffs and trying to find out more about the operational aspects of being a head coach. He came into Miami very green, his first head coaching opportunity. He didn't cut his teeth at a Division II school or a smaller school. He went straight into the big time. And really, his main problems were those sort of program management issues as far as recruiting, redshirting, keeping a nice nutrition plan, those sort of things. He's already proven he's a very good defensive coordinator. He won the Burroughs Award in 2001 as the outstanding assistant of the nation. So, the fact that he's taking an active approach to try to learn some of these operational aspects of being a head coach, which Al Golden learned at Temple, really shows that he might do better in his next job, and certainly that he's seeking another head coaching job. TSU would be a great land for him. Obviously, they've been a much better program than Miami has the past few years, so that would be significant.
If you could learn under a guy like Gary Patterson, that would certainly be a guy you definitely can pick up some tips from. No question about it. He's done a great job there at TCU. Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, the best in the business covering the University of Miami. Guy is an owner, a writer, a contributor, also hosts a podcast out there, man, is the busiest guy in the 305 area code. As always, Danny, really appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you next week, buddy.
So thank you, guys. Congrats on the new spot.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Hey, coming up on the other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to Tallahassee, where some bad news up